Hi there, I'm Logan Medish, and this is High Caliber History. Now, a number of gun companies, Winchester included, have a long history of taking milestone guns with special serial numbers like 1 million, 1.5 million, 2 million, and so forth, and having them custom engraved and inlaid with gold and other precious metals, and then oftentimes presenting them to prominent individuals, such as presidents of the United States. Well, that's why there's one impressive Winchester that is a little bit different. You see, the Winchester Model 1894, or now the Model 94, is one of the most iconic lever-action guns of all time, and is one of the most produced guns of all time. Today, they've made more than 7.5 million of them. And so when it came time for the production dies to roll around and stamp the serial number 2.5 million onto the gun, it was a big deal. And it was engraved by one of the Cusmet brothers, John Cusmet, and he and his brother Nick were actually trained Winchester engravers under the famed Ulrich brothers. And so to have been taught how to engrave by the famed Ulrichs, it meant that work done by the Cusmets was really, really impressive and highly sought after. And so the gun with serial number 2.5 million was a beautifully engraved and gold inlaid gun, an absolute show-stopping piece. So you would think, having recently given serial number 2 million to President Dwight Eisenhower, that serial number 2.5 million would go to the next sitting president at that point, which was John F. Kennedy. But that wasn't the case. Winchester records indicate from John Olin himself that the factory decided to keep serial number 2.5 million for themselves. It's interesting, it doesn't state why they chose to do that, but they chose to do it nonetheless. So in 1962, Winchester creates an exact duplicate of serial number 2.5 million, except this time the serial number is 2.5 million A. But it is beautifully stocked, it's engraved, it's gold inlaid, also by John Cusmet. It is an absolute duplicate of 2.5 million, with the exception of the A suffix in the serial number. And they decided that they were going to hold a contest for this gun. They called it the Winchester Contest, and it started off with their 1962 catalog. And so the front and back covers of the catalog show an image, a black and white image of 19 men all standing armed with Winchester Model 1895 lever-action rifles. All except one man. He's not holding a Winchester. In fact, he's got an older Krag model rifle. And so Winchester decided that they were going to craft a story around this, and they wanted to bring the public in on it for the Win a Winchester contest. And so the story went that here is this photograph of 19 Texas Rangers, and they're all carrying Winchesters except this one man. Why is this one man not carrying a Winchester? Write in and give your best answer and explanation as to why he's not armed with a Winchester, and they'll pick the best one, and that person will win the gun. So there's an interesting side note. It later came out that the men were not, in fact, Texas Rangers. They were actually Arizona Territorial Rangers. So that's an interesting difference there. And the photo has actually been cropped. It was actually a larger image that showed 25 men, but it was cropped down to this image of 19 guys, presumably because that's what fit best onto the catalog. And so they got a ton of different entries that all came in. They had huge promotional stuff, ads taken out in magazines and papers. They had promotional buttons made up for it. And interestingly, when it came time to get the winning entrant, it came down to Mr. and Mrs. Emmerich of Anchorage, Alaska. And their answer was in the form of a limerick that said, "That man ain't no ranger, just wanted his picture took. Tried to get the trappings to get that ranger look. Borrowed the hat, the star, and the string tie, but no one loans his Winchester to another guy, and that's why." And that was the winning entry. And so the rifle was sent along with some great paperwork and certificates and sent to Mr. and Mrs. Emmerich in Anchorage, Alaska. They didn't hold on to the gun long. They had it for less than a year before it went up for sale, because a $5,000 rifle in 1962 has the 2022 equivalent of about $42,000. So it was a substantial chunk of change that they were going to get. So the gun made its way into the collector community, and serial number 2.5 million has been featured in a number of books and catalogs. In fact, 2.5 million made its way into the Winchester 1963 catalog, and 2.5 million A is in the Winchester engraving book by R.L. Wilson. So it's just kind of an interesting piece of history that the company took this monumental milestone number gun and for one reason or another chose not to present it to a dignitary of some kind like they had in the past, but to keep it for themselves. Why exactly they chose to make a duplicate of that gun and give that away as a contest piece remains unknown. We don't have any indication from the factory why they chose to do it, but it's pretty cool that they did it, and it garnered a lot of press and a lot of attention, and obviously it worked really well because, you know, that's 1962. Here we are in 2022, 60 years later, and we are still talking about that gun. I wish that Winchester would do another Win a Winchester contest. I know I'd like to have a beautiful engraved gun like that, but alas, such is not the case. Maybe when they roll around to the 8 millionth Model 94, so hint hint Winchester, if anyone from the company is watching this, let's make that happen, right guys? Alright, well anyway, thanks for tuning into this video. I hope you learned something today. Please, if you're not subscribed, subscribe to the channel, give a thumbs up to the video, leave me a comment below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you right here on the next video.